Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dating is Hard podcast. I'm your host, Joe Welke. You can find out everything you need to know about this podcast at datingishardcomedy.com. You can follow the Instagram at datingishardcomedy. You can follow me on Instagram at Joe Welke to see when my shows are and all that good stuff. I'll post updates about this podcast, etc. The Dating is Hard live show is every fourth Wednesday at Pack Theater. We're back from hiatus, baby. We had to take a couple shows off because, the holidays, but we're back. Pack Theater, it's a by donation theater, so that means if you can spare spending a couple bucks to donate to the theater, that's awesome, and it's very much appreciated. But if you can't, guess what? You can still come to the show, and it'll be a good time. Today, the guest on my podcast is a lovely woman named Melissa. It's been a weird cat and mouse game of us trying to plan doing this podcast for a long time. And finally got her in, and I'm so happy we did. It's a great podcast. She's got a lot of great stories about dating and theories and etc. If you guys enjoy the podcast, please follow, subscribe, give it a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps, get it more popular and all that bull crap. So thanks a lot for listening, guys, and enjoy this interview with Melissa. Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of the Dating is Hard podcast. Oh my god, I'm your host, Joe Welke. This is a podcast that's all about dating and relationships and all that good stuff, and how I meet I'll say 90% of my guests, because sometimes we got, random people that I just know throughout life. But 90% of the guests that I meet are through dating apps. I've set up profiles that say, hey, I'm looking for people to come on to my podcast that have weird, interesting, unique stories about dating. And that is how I met my guest today. We first got connected through Bumble, so I'd like to welcome to the show Melissa. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we got connected through Bumble.
Yes.
How's Bumble going for you?
Horribly.
Hence why you're on this fucking podcast.
Do you remember why you messaged me?
I don't.
On my profile.
This has been a while in the making.
It's true. It's been a couple of months of conversation.
Yeah, we got connected a couple months ago. September, and as we're currently recording, it is November 15th. Yes. So it has been a while, but we kept through it. We stuck through it. It's been months, and it's been so far in the making. Watch this be like the worst episode.
Yes, set me up for failure.
Just kidding. But no, I do not remember what.
In my profile, it says, ask me how I get kicked off Tinder. And you were like, you would be a good person for my podcast.
Yes. So
sign me up.
Perfect. Okay. Now that you've said that, it kickstarted my memory.
Yes.
So what apps are you on? Because I feel like no one's on just one.
Oh, I'm on basically all of them except Tinder. So I'm on Bumble, J-Swipe, because I'm a tribe member.
You're a chosen one.
Coffee Meets Bagel, which I never speak to a human on ever.
Really?
Nope. Hinge, same thing. I always get matches, but never people actively answering. My friends are currently swiping for me on Ship.
What's Ship?
It's one where your friends can swipe for you, so you all form a crew and you're and you're on a ship together. But I think it's just only that, because even if I match with people, no one messages me, because I think it's just their friend. No one's actually messaging each other on the app.
Really?
So, yes.
I just got a message via my Instagram and then website from one called Foreplay Social, and it's like a group date one where it's you and a friend.
F-O-U-R or F-O-R-E?
F-O-U-R.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's you and a friend
different.
going on a group date with a guy and a friend.
Okay.
So it's four people,
Grouper,
so it's foreplay.
Which is my favorite Always Sunny episode, but continue.
Is Grouper a dating app?
Yes, where it's you get a secret message to meet in a place with another group of people.
No, I never heard
And
that.
the guys always just made it at their bar, so girls would come, and it was horrible. It's one of my favorite episodes.
I mean, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is classic.
Yes.
But.
Sorry, tangent.
Yeah.
So you got a message through Foreplay, which sounds much dirtier than it should be.
Yeah, right? And I got a message about Foreplay, and the PR person was like, we'd love to fucking have our inventors, you can interview them. And I was like, maybe. So that could be down the road. That could be an episode a little bit. Maybe it'll be the next episode. Who knows?
The world is your oyster.
But you're on all of them.
Basically, except Tinder.
Except Tinder.
Because I got kicked off.
Because you got kicked off. What happened?
I post every dick pic that I received.
Well, that will get you kicked
hundreds,
off.
Which was like
That'll
hundreds.
Get you kicked
It
off.
was years ago. There used to be a Snapchat thing. I think it was called like Moments, where you could basically share photos with all your matches.
Yes.
So every time I got a dick pic, I posted on my Moment, and I was like, "This is what it's like to be sexually harassed. Stop sending these photos." And it was like a lot of them because I once had a guy who didn't even say words. He just sent dick pics.
Just sent.
Yeah. And then,
right off the bat.
Conveniently, at the same time as my senior year of college, I was taking a class called Tweet This, which was about Twitter playwriting, which was actually really cool. So my senior thesis for that class was I made a show that was all on Twitter with actual messages from people on these dating apps, including dick pics. So it's hashtag Rudey Nudey. Still on Twitter.
Is it?
Yeah, there's like 9 different accounts. So I made one of those like Hootsuite things so I could like have them all interact with each other.
Yeah.
So it's still up, dick pics included.
And so Tinder saw all of these dick pics that you were posting, and they were like, "No mas."
Yes.
And
I was
can
like,
you still
God.
not get on it?
Oh, nope. And I'm like very thankful that I can't, honestly, because it's probably a garbage fire. So.
I mean, all of them are quote unquote garbage fires, according to. I mean, I have a whole podcast about how it's.
Yeah, you do.
Everyone, and it's like I've met people through all of them.
Yeah.
And like.
I think Tinder might be the biggest garbage fire, though. Yeah?
Yeah, have you been on Plenty of Fish?
Oh, yeah. That is true. I was on Plenty of Fish.
There are tiers.
But I met the only person who I stayed in contact with, who I dated from Plenty of Fish. Like, we're still friends. So I guess it wasn't like that bad of a sight.
I only met one person from Plenty of Fish, and we're still in contact.
Right. So maybe it's just like for nicer people.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. So where would you rank which one's best, which one's worst?
Well, best in terms of what? There's a lot of categories.
Let's say best is you've met the most quality people where you're like, oh, I feel like this could go somewhere, regardless of if it did or didn't.
Right.
Where you're like, oh, this is an interesting,
in the beginning,
good
I
person.
would say OkCupid. Mm-hmm. Not anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just for like weird people being like, I live in Egypt, be my princess. I'm like, what? But in the beginning, OkCupid, the only person I like called my quote unquote boyfriend was from OkCupid. So maybe that. The questions were decent, and now they're like, do you want to be peed on during sex? And I'm like, why is this a question?
Yeah, I recently was on, so I was on dating apps with this
Right.
podcast in mind for like the longest time. And then in the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I got on for myself to be like, well, now I want to date people again. And
Even though
I
it's
got,
hard.
it's hard. You know, I'm still out there in the fire and the shit. And it was the first time I had gotten back on OkCupid since like college.
Yeah.
I haven't been on it. It's just like, it's completely different. And the questions are
They're
like
user generated now, I think. I think before it was like them writing them, and now it's like anyone can submit a question. So some of them are insane.
Well, some of them are like very, very personal,
Yes.
and it's like if your significant other was on their deathbed, would you cheat on them? It's like what?
It's like this clearly happened to someone, and that's why they wrote a question about it. But my favorite was to troll people on OkCupid. Because
Why
in the
would you troll
beginning,
people?
because like there'd be all those weird sex questions,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time when I first made an account, when it first came out, I was probably like 19, so I was still a virgin at the time. So I just like wrote all these weird answers to all the sex questions just to see what people would say. And that horrible person I told you about was from OkCupid. But anyway,
We'll get into that.
yeah, so someone was like, "Do you have any fetishes?" And I'd be like, "Spiders." Like I'd just write like weird stuff just to see, and I'd get responses because men are stupid.
Yeah.
No offense, but
No, yeah, we are.
most
We're-
online dating men are stupid.
Yeah.
They're like, a question about sex? Tell me more.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, spiders. Why don't you tell me about that? I had a tarantula when I was 14 years old.
Yeah,
It's just like, dude, how desperate can you be?
Oh, so many of us. So I guess OkCupid was the best. And then
Okay.
Tinder was the worst, and then the rest sort of. I mean,
Fall in the middle.
I've just never talked to people on Hinge or Coffee Meets Bagel. I'll like get matches, and then they just like. I don't know if they suddenly hate me or people just actively aren't on those apps because it's not as like instantaneous.
Yeah, well,
fewer swipes or whatever.
I think the reason why people are prevented from being on Hinge and Coffee Meets Bagel as much as they are on like Tinder and Bumble is like the amount of matches that you can go through in a day.
Yeah.
Is so few. Like Tinder, you can get, I don't know, like 50
They
or whatever.
limit it now, right? Isn't it like different?
Tinder's limited.
so interesting.
Bumble just started limiting it. Like
I didn't know that.
yeah, they were like, because I was swiping and it was like, you've hit your limit for the day. And I was like, Bumble? Since when?
Maybe only on dudes because I've never had that.
Well, you
sometimes I
probably
just swipe
nuts.
right on everyone to see what happens.
I mean, Bumble there's a lot. You have
Yes.
to go through a lot in order to hit your limit for the day.
Yes.
But with Coffee Meets Bagel, it's like 20, and Hinge is
Well,
like
Coffee Meets
10.
Bagel, you have like beans.
Yeah,
you have
that
to
beans
spend
thing
or
is
whatever.
fucking retarded. Yeah. I've always held fast that Hinge is the best one.
For relationships, I think, because that's
Yeah.
what it's like. It's like in their terms and conditions that you're like on here for a relationship or whatever.
And also, for me, every time that I've been on Hinge, except for this last time,
Yeah.
they've upgraded me to like the paid one without me paying.
That's
They're
good.
like, we're just gonna give you a
Like
courtesy.
you're a quality person.
I guess. I don't know.
The last Hinge conversation I had with someone, which is very rare, it was like the other day, and he was like, "It's my birthday. What should I do for my birthday?" And I was like, "This is weird. I don't know. Get pizza." Because I was like, didn't know, and I was not attracted to this person at all. But I was like, a match on Hinge, that never happens.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "What about pink taco?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's your birthday. Go do whatever you want." Like,
Well, I
what?
don't want pizza. You're like, I don't give a fuck. I don't know you.
Seriously. And it wasn't even like, come do it with me. He was just straight up like asking what, and then he was just like, "Okay, cool." And then it never went anywhere. And I was like, all right, bye.
That's so
Another
weird.
Hinge one bites the dust.
That's
fine.
whack as fuck.
Exactly. Just like, it's all that happens. Or I just match with people that are like, it'll get to the point where I'm like, here's my number. Like, I'm just so sick of I don't have anything notify me except texts and calls because I just don't want to be on my phone too much. And it's just easier, I think. And I have an old ass iPhone that dies every 4 seconds. So it's just easier to not be using data. And they're like, what do you want from me? And I'm like, just text me. And then we'll just have a conversation on a different platform. And they're like,
People are weird about like,
Yeah.
hey, here's my number. Text me.
yeah.
Fuck that, dude.
This is a new LA thing that I've never experienced before.
Yeah,
And the
I don't-
predate, or
What's
like
the predate?
it's like a let's get coffee before we go on a date. It's like I don't want to be vulnerable and call it a date, so let's call it something else.
See, I'll believe
Or
it.
the hangout. And I'm like, it's
I
a
believe
date.
in that though.
Really?
I believe in that though. I believe in that though because,
Just call it a date though. Like
Well-
a meeting's a date.
well, I mean, there's also a lot of women that are afraid of like it being called a date.
But I think that's stupid. If you're meeting on a dating app, even if it's just to hook up or whatever, it's still a date. Like,
I agree. I think that the first meeting isn't even like a date. It's to prove that I'm a real person, number one. To prove that I look like my pictures, number two. Prove I'm not going to murder you,
valid.
number three.
Yeah, I'm in your
And
apartment.
then so it's, yeah, you're in my apartment. That's always the hardest part of this podcast. It's like, hey, I'm not. There's some
know.
people where I'm like, hey, let's. So before we started recording, like we got coffee, so I could be like, hey,
Yes.
look, we're real people.
I'm also
But
too trusting.
some people are like, no, I'll just come to your apartment. I'm like, this is how people get
Yeah,
murdered.
it's very scary.
Yeah.
Also, my profile is filled with me, like photos of me axe throwing because I'm in an axe throwing league. Gonna plug LAX, even though I don't work there or anything.
LAX, that's
LAX.
awesome.
It's up
That's
Coldwater
cute.
Canyon and like the Deep Valley. But I've been doing it since the election because it's the best stress reliever ever. But there's photos of me holding an axe in my pictures. And they're like, just come over. And I'm like, what? You are so trusting. I literally
Can
have
I
2
bring my
axes
axe?
in my car. Like, why are you just okay with me coming to your apartment?
Yeah, it's like tricky with this though because I was talking to one girl that I was trying to have on this podcast who we had mutual friends.
Okay.
I have pictures on my profile, as you
Right.
saw, of like, hey, I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Then there's a picture of me like with the computer. I'm
Right.
like, here's where I do my podcast.
Like, this is obviously my plug.
Yeah, and then like it's weird on Bumble because like there's picture restrictions, but like on Tinder you can have like.
Picture restrictions?
Yeah, well, I also put like my personal Instagram
Right.
account, put the Dating is Hard Instagram account, put the Dating is Hard website, and like listen to it.
Right.
So I was talking to this girl. I was like, "Yeah, you should totally come on." She was like, "Well, I'll run it by like our mutual friend, and we'll see if she clears you." And I was like, "That's okay. Like you can also
safe,
listen."
I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I was like, "You can also listen to a couple episodes of the
Right.
podcast too." And she was like, "That doesn't mean anything to me. You could be like really elaborately scheme." It's like that's very elaborate.
That'd be a very intense.
It's like that guy deserves the kills that he gets, though,
True.
if that happens.
Maybe.
But anyway,
I've been very much catfish though. So
Really?
yeah.
Catfish like looks like a completely different person.
Yeah. Well, most of these people I haven't met in real life because now that I've learned how to reverse Google image search, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you were this model.
People do
And
that.
then they like delete me immediately.
People do that.
The first one was with one of my friends in Philly, and she was like, something's up. Because he had kept canceling dates with actual legitimate excuses, but I was like, this is weird. This is like the 4th or 5th time he's canceled. And then we reverse Google image searched his pictures, and he was a gay porn star, which was even better. He just like cropped all of the like bottomlessness out of all of his pictures. It was amazing. And then I was like, who are you really? And then he sent me a picture, and he was like a 45-year-old, like very hairy man. And I was like, this is not the site for you. This is not what you should be doing.
Have you ever met somebody like an actual catfish?
No. Usually I call them out before I meet.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not wasting my time on this.
Well, I feel like there is a difference between like catfishing where it's like I'm just using old pictures of myself where I'm like
50 pounds lighter.
Yeah, and like I don't have gray hair or whatever, right. And then like being a completely different person.
Nope.
I don't understand. My roommate, a Tiff Myers, shout out to Tiff Myers, at a Tiff Myers. Check him out on Spotify. He's releasing stand-up every week. He had a friend that was, Tiff is a black Muslim guy.
Okay.
His friend was a white, like, fat guy.
Okay.
He used a Tiff's pictures on a dating app to catfish people.
Oh my God.
Did
it was
Tiff
like,
know? He found out later on.
Oh, no.
Because a girl that he matched with on a dating app was like, person? I matched with you before. And he was like, that was not me.
Oh my God.
And so he was like, I can't believe that he was using that. It's like, it's a different race.
Entirely. Like, it's everything's different. One guy did that, but, like, told people that he, like, we matched, and he was like, well, this photo's, like, doing it for me. He's like, I'm doing this like a social experiment. And then he posted pictures of himself, and I was like, but you're more attractive than this photo. So, like, what? And then I met up with him, and he was an asshole, so whatever. But that's a whole other situation. Because I was like, that's an interesting social experiment. We were, like, talking about our, like, online dating experiences. And I was like, let's meet up. And he was, like, the worst human, but it's whatever.
Why? What was he?
He was just, like, an asshole. And then, like, we, like, made plans to go out again. Because, like, that date was actually fine. It was, like, the in-between. I was like, oh, like, when are we going out again? He was like, when you put out. And I was like, you're disgusting.
Yeah.
Bye. Like,
gross, man.
You're the worst. And he lied about his age on top of everything else. Like, he's 24, and he keeps popping up on the apps again. He says he's 33, and I'm like, why don't you just be a person instead of...
So he's 24 and he says he's 33?
Yeah, which I don't know, like,
why?
how that... Exactly, I don't know. I don't know.
What? That's so weird.
Maybe he's trying to match with older women, so he, like, thinks he's doing them a service. I don't know. People lie. People are garbage.
Do you... So...
Very jaded.
I do social experiments with my profile. Do you do that? Have you ever done it?
Sometimes I just troll people. The people that deserve to be trolled, to be fair, though. They're never just like, except the spiders situation, but that was just funny. But It's like, if they message with me with like a DTF, sometimes I just like pretend like I have no idea what sex is, which I think is really funny. Because sometimes these guys are like immediately like, oh God, like you're not the one for me. Or they're like fascinated.
Yeah.
And they're like, let me teach you. And I'm just like even creepier.
Teach you.
So much worse sometimes. Where I'm like, or they're like, do you want me to give me a blowjob? And I'm like, what's that? And then they like don't know how to explain it.
What a blowjob is, and maybe.
Yes, exactly. It's just like, so sometimes, I guess like that is a social experiment itself. It's like, the best are the people, like, if I do something like that and they can't explain it, and I'm like, maybe you shouldn't be doing it if you don't know how to describe what it is.
You shouldn't ask for it if you don't know what it
like
is
they
yourself.
teach you in, like, sex ed, right? They're like, if you can't talk about it, you shouldn't be doing it, or whatever. Did they not say that to you in, like, 6th grade or 7th grade?
I don't know. I went to Catholic school all my life.
Oh, no. I went to public school, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, they were like, don't do it if you can't talk about it. I'm like,
I think I remember our sex ed, they just had people with AIDS come in and be like, don't do it.
What?
I'm dead serious. I remember that. That was like in 5th
horrible.
or 6th grade, and there were people with AIDS that came in, and they were talking about sex and it was just weird. That's all I remember about it, though. Like, I don't remember anything about it.
I'm in shock. That is insane.
Catholic school.
It's like the scene from Mean Girls. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Don't have sex.
Don't have sex. You'll die.
Here's some rubbers.
Take some rubbers,
yeah,
kids.
Exactly.
That's such a great movie.
It is a great movie. Classic.
So do you remember, like, when you first got on dating apps?
Yes.
Do you remember which one it was? Was it OkCupid?
It was OkCupid.
Yeah,
and JDate, because I'm a Jew.
Because I am so Jewish.
It used to be that women didn't have to pay for it. Now it's $60 a month.
Are you serious? Yeah. $60 a month?
Yes. Which is like stereotypical.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke,
it's
but
like,
I allowed
It's giving us a bad name. And then my parents are like overbearing Jewish parents that are a little bit like, why are you dating anyone? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if you want to spend $60 a month. And I once remade an account to be like, I'm curious what it's like. And now it's all like 50-year-old men that want babies like immediately. And I'm like, I can't. And it's still like from 1999. Like the interface is horrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Which is weird because I think they bought J-Swipe, which is like the Jewish Tinder.
Yeah.
And like that's, I guess, up to date-ish.
Do you have to pay for J-Swipe?
It's like Bumble. It's like you can pay for like super swipes or like whatever, all that
premium
extra
accounts.
stuff. Yeah. Except now it's like all just ads for Birthright. And I'm like, stop. Leave me
I
alone.
already went on Birthright.
Yeah, guys, leave me alone. That's a whole other story.
I already got the picture with the gun.
I got the free. No, I did not do that.
Already swam in the Dead Sea. They told me not to pee in it.
Yes. Hurts.
I've dated so many Jews.
Welcome to LA. So,
This is in New York, but
that
same
too.
difference.
Yes, exactly.
Do you remember your first dating app date?
That's actually really interesting. Well, I was talking to people for a while I was writing this like Twitter play thing. And one guy, we never met up, but he asked me to peg him before we even met. And I was like, who are you? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
I want to know more about your life.
I'm all about, like, sexual positivity and experimenting and whatever, and, like, do what makes you happy. But, like, that comes with, like, getting to know someone and trust and all sorts of stuff. He just immediately was like, are you into pegging? And I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
I was, like, 19 when all the apps and things came out. And I went to an art school where we all lived in this little bubble.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think I would have known what pegging was back then either.
No. So I did a lot of research. And then I was like, no, please stop talking to me. Who are you? And then I watched that Broad City episode and I was like, yep, this is real.
Wait, how old are you?
Now?
Yeah.
27.
Was Broad City on back then?
No, like I recently watched it, and
I was like,
oh, that's real.
I was like, how old is Broad City? Holy shit, time is flying by so fast.
In LA, it does. It's like, you've been here for 100 years. There's
I
no
know.
seasons.
I know, it's crazy,
It
dude.
is very crazy. But yeah.
Do you want to peg me?
I'm trying to...
It's like,
No.
that's a whole other
I have
level, dude.
no interest. The first dating app date I went on was actually not even a date. So it was this guy who I told you about when we got coffee, who I was like 19, he was like 22, and he like refused to go on a date. He like would only invite himself over, which like should have been a red flag, but I was like 19 and like new to this date. I also went to an art school with 90% gay men, so like dating in general was like very new to me.
Yeah.
So I think I had a party or something, or I went to a friend's party and just like drunk texted him and was like, just come over. And I had a group of people and he brought a group of people. So it wasn't like super unsafe, but it also wasn't the smartest decision I made. And like, he was just really weird with his friends and didn't talk to me the whole time.
It was like a 8th grade dance.
Basically.
It was like everybody's on one side of the room.
And then later that night, I'll never forget this. I got food poisoning from something at the party. This is also before I knew I had celiac, so it could have just been gluten. And just the death of me. And I was in a show at the time, and I had to call out. And they had to like call it an understudy. And they were like, she's just hungover, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I was puking my guts up all night, like I promise. And it was like conservatory drama throughout the school. It was horrible. But that was my first dating app date, kind of, even though it wasn't a date.
Well, what happened with that guy when he became a huge asshole?
It was just like, it was honestly 6.
Because you went out with him
Yeah,
again.
but we never actually went on dates. It was just a lot of like weird phone conversations and then him like inviting me over. He was just a toxic person.
Yeah.
And recently, as I told you, hit me up because now he still lives in Philly and now I live in LA, and every time I come back to town he like wants to see me but has a girlfriend, and I keep trying to screenshot these things and send them to his girlfriend and she doesn't read them.
Oh, that's such a shame.
It is such a shame.
Trying to explain. Well,
Like he's a toxic garbage person who's like 35 and still lives with his parents.
Well, I understand why.
Like, Philly's also a very cheap city to live in. There's no reason to still live with your parents unless, like, there's, like, a real issue.
Well...
My rent was $500 a month for a 2-story house. Like, it was amazing.
That's so
I know,
fantastic.
right? It makes me want to cry.
Dude, I was doing a comedy festival in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Amazing.
And a guy was like, I bought a house. Guess what my mortgage is? Guess what I pay every month? And this is when I was living in New York. I was like, I don't even want to know. And he was like, it's $720 a month. I was like, I will kill you.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, I'm just going to move here and buy the entire city.
Yeah. But you know what's crazy is like, so I was thinking about this when you were telling me originally, is that I have so much debt, but I don't live with my parents.
Yes.
And that, like, people that live with their parents are saving so much money.
It's true.
And they're probably, like, way better financially off than I am. But somehow I'm seen as, like, the better catch than the guy.
Yeah.
But I am so...
Because you're not breastfeeding anymore. That's what I always say to guys that still date. Those are my really, like, 2 biggest deal breakers are Trump supporters and people who still live with their parents.
Really?
Without, like, a legitimate excuse. There was this one guy
You're like, you still with your parents? And he's like, my mom has cancer.
Right.
You're
so
like,
this,
oh.
Right. That I'm like, okay, there's exceptions. Or like, I just got laid off. Or like I met this one guy who was like, I literally put all my savings into this business that's like booming, but I'm like waiting till it's consistent to like move out, blah, blah, blah. Or like people have never left. That seems to be an LA thing. Where it's like, I've always lived with my parents in this house in the valley forever. And it's like, but even college, like sometime a sleepover,
Yeah.
like did you ever leave? Like I don't know, but there's this one guy. I first moved to LA. I don't remember what app. It was one of the swipe apps, and we were talking. It was Thanksgiving Day, and he asked me out to get a drink, and I was like, "Well, I have like a Friendsgiving thing in a little bit with like all of these other like LA orphans. Like I don't know what time we're done, but like I can hit you up after." And then he was like, sure. And then something came up where he was talking about how he was taking care of his dad. His dad was like very sick and he was living with him. And I just moved here. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be honest. Like, it looks like you're looking for something like really consistent and like steady and serious while you're dealing with this. And I don't think I'm the right person. Like, I'd rather like cut this off now. And then he was like cursing me out. And I was like with all my friends like around this Thanksgiving table. We're like, what is going on? He was like, you're such a fucking bitch, blah, 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 blah. Like,
was it over the phone?
no, it was like via text. And it was just like so and I was like, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Bye. Like I was just like, please leave me alone. I'm sorry. This is a sensitive situation. But like it was very obvious that he was like looking for a caregiver while he was caregiving to his father. And I was like, I'm not that person. I'm sorry. I just moved here. I don't know where anything is. I don't know if I'm staying here. Like,
Well, there's also like those people that it's like they just need a therapist, but their therapist is their significant other, and it's just like...
Or the codependent people that are like, I've just only been in relationships forever. And I'm like, maybe take a year to like figure out who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking with you about people with pets.
Yes.
I feel like, and this is going to be a controversial thing, but I feel like people that have pets are just people that can't stand being alone with their thoughts for an extended period of time. They're like not comfortable with who they are, so they need to like distract themselves with something else. And that's why I'm like, now I've kind of like, well, it's
if they're alone with the pet. I think like a couple or like a roommate, just like a group of roommates together being like, let's like adopt a dog from a kill shelter. Like that, I'm like, great, go do that. But yeah, when it's like one person
like,
alone
I'm
in their
lonely,
apartment all
I'm
the
getting
time.
a dog,
yeah,
or
and then
I'm
their
getting a
whole
cat.
social media presence, like, is that animal?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's like, dude, you gotta get a hobby.
Yes.
Because then their hobby is their
animal.
pet. Yeah.
Right now, my hobby, which is my pet, is a passion fruit vine that I bought that is growing on my balcony. And I just really like flowers and passion fruit. So that's what my pet is right now.
Well, I mean, that actually kind of like can...
be useful.
Pun intended, can bear fruit.
Yes, hopefully. That's
a hobby that has like something that goes on, you know?
I just watched a lot of Great British Baking Show. This is how this started. I watched a lot of Great British Baking Show and they use passion fruit and everything. And I was like, I want to start doing that. And passion fruit are like $4 a fruit and they're like this big and you can't use most of it. So I was like, this is stupid. I just want to grow my own. I'm in a town where it's sunny all the time.
Yeah, that's
true. And I just bought a tree, and it's like working out.
It's always sunny in Los Angeles.
It is always sunny in Los Angeles. Never in Philly, but it's fine.
Yeah, Philly.
Anyway.
Though I do love Philly.
Dating things. Philly is great. I miss it a lot. I'm going back next week. I'm very excited.
Philly!
Yes.
Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Wait, no, that's not next week.
Well, I'm going back for like the week before Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to Scranton.
You know what's crazy is this episode isn't coming out until like January. We're talking about
turkey time, guys.
Guys, now you get a little peek behind the curtain here. Usually I don't like mention dates or anything on here because I'm like, this who knows when this is going to come out.
Exactly.
But now a little peek behind the curtain. These are recorded months in advance. Because sometimes I need a break. Dude, there will be times where I'm like recording like 2 or 3 in a day. And it's just like, whoa. So I get like all this.
Nap
like,
from talking to people.
I mean,
I'm an extrovert, so I'm just like.
See, I love talking to people one-on-one.
Yes.
If I'm like, that's like why. Sometimes people will be like, let's go to this party for a date. And it's like, I'm going to be a turtle there. I'm going to be in a shell. I'm going to be on a wall. I'm going to be like, oh yeah, you go have fun. Like I recently.
Oh, I'm the opposite. I'd be like, yes, let's go. I love talking to people. I love meeting people, which is why I thought dating apps would be great. Because I'm like, if anything, I just get to meet a bunch of excited people. But now I'm just like, I'm like that withered old lady that I'm like, I'm just done. Like smoking a cigarette in the corner. I was like, it's been like, how long has it been since these apps came out? Like 6 years, 7 years?
I feel like it's been long. Because I first got on OkCupid when I was in senior year of college. And that was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking like apps, like versus websites. Like when did Tinder came out? I think my senior year of college. So that was like almost 8 years ago. like, I remember my friend came over and he was like, do you know that there's this thing where you can just like swipe on people to have sex with them? And I was like, that doesn't sound like it's ever gonna work. And then it blew up. Just like, I was like, that sounds gross. And then here we are.
Well, that was the thing about Tinder, was like, this is the hookup app, and now it has morphed into...
Now there's one called Squirt. Have you seen those
Dude,
ads?
you're the first person that I know that has brought up Squirt. Like, I've had gay guys on this podcast.
There's
I'm like,
ads in West Hollywood. I'm like, what is this? This sounds disgusting.
Squirt is the worst name.
Is it like Grindr 2.0? Like, is that the idea? I think
so, but like, nothing's ever going to overtake Grindr.
My friend wrote an opera about Grindr.
An opera about Grindr?
Yeah, it was in New York. It was like an off-Broadway situation.
That sounds pretty interesting.
Yes, it was very interesting. Because I told, he like found me through the Rudey Nudey thing, and then we were talking, and he was like, oh my God, like I'm writing a similar yet different thing.
Well, who is the most interesting person that you've met via a dating app?
Met in real life?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, we hit it off and we dated for a while. Just like, this person was interesting as shit.
Like a Rolodex. I might be the last guy that I dated, honestly. He was very interesting, even though we were 100% not compatible. He was an antiques dealer, which I thought was like pretty cool. He actually bailed on our first date because one of his clients died.
Oh my God.
And he had to be there like first when they were going through like her storage locker so he could like get stuff for like his antique store. And I was like, this is the best like thing that someone's ever done to like bail on a date ever.
That seems very invasive though. Like, he had to be there before like family.
I don't know. I don't know if they like left things in their will that was like, this storage locker is like either going to get donated or to this like company that I'm like continuously donating to. I have no idea. He didn't give me the details, but he was a very interesting person. He was also one of those people that sometimes I just can't stand. That's like 100% positivity all the time. And I'm just like, but sometimes you have like really shitty days and you just want to like vent to someone. Yeah. So he was the guy who, he would post these really long Instagram stories about like positivity messages, which is like, okay, like fine and good and like put positivity in the world. But he has like 200 followers and he's like doing these things like as if he's like an influencer. So he posted this like 20-minute long story about like the importance of making your bed in the morning and how that'll like change your outlook on life. And then he posted a video of him in like some storage unit, clearly, or like, I don't even know, like storage room in his office or something, where he was like, sorry for the background, guys. Like as if he like, people were asking him to make these videos, and instead of his like multi-million-dollar studio, he had this like storage boxes behind him. I
know you're used to like better content from your boy.
Yeah.
No one's watching.
And then I like told him, I was like, hey, I don't think this is work. Because I haven't seen him since Halloween. And I was like, we haven't made any plans. You really haven't been communicative. Like, I just don't think this is going to work out. And he sent me this message where he was like, I'm sorry for any inconvenience I may have caused you. And I was like, this is like an email I get from like my bank if I was like switching banks.
We wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Literally, he was like, I wish you the best luck in your future. And I hope we stay friends. But if not, I totally get it. And I was just like, I'm not answering this. This is so weird.
That's kind of sweet, though.
It was sweet, and he was definitely a very interesting person, to answer your question, but it was very weird. And just, like, he couldn't plan anything to save his life. Like, every date, I was like, why don't we do this? And he was like, okay. Which was, like, kind of nice, because it was all ideas and things that I wanted to do, which is, like, cool. But then once
you want to go dildo shopping? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Once I was, like, just not... I was like, let's make plans. He was like, yeah. ... Like, it just wouldn't go anywhere. So I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, eventually you have to like take command, I feel like.
Exactly.
Like, how about you pick something?
Exactly. Or like, let's just watch Netflix and hang out. Like, I'm okay with that too, especially like once I know someone. I'm like, yeah, it's cold out and dark all the time. Like, let's just do nothing together. Like, I'm okay with that. But like, it wasn't even that. So, and he bailed on 4 dates. So
were they all different excuses, or was it all like antiques related? They were all
similar. Just the antiques one was the only time that was a thing. But then he lived in like a guest house, and his sort of job and his rent was really cheap because he managed the pool for the property. Mm-hmm. So there were like 3 separate occasions where he made plans, and he was like, the pool pipe burst and now I have to like fix it. And like, he showed me pictures and things, so I like believed him, but it still was just like, cool. If you had told me at 9 a.m. as opposed to like 4 hours or 3 hours before our date, I could have made other plans. Like, I could have done something else with my day. Like,
I feel like that's LA as fuck, though.
Oh, I hate it.
Like, people will bail on, I can't tell you how many times, like 4 hours, 5 hours before a date.
Even like
hey,
right
no,
before.
Whoops. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I live in the valley, and that's like a whole, like, ugh, the valley. I'm like, you're still 20 minutes away. Like, I live 10 minutes from Hollywood, even though it's over a hill, but I'm still right there.
Yeah, I don't get people like I live in Glendale, and people are like, Glendale? It's like, it's 10 minutes away.
From, like, everything.
Yeah. It's like, you live in Sherman Oaks. You're, like, the Glendale West.
Exactly. Yes, the Glendale Light. I was in Sherman Oaks. No, it was Studio City. But
Sherman Oaks is nice. Studio City is nice. All of these valley places are very nice.
And much cheaper than the city.
Yes!
And much more space.
Yes.
Stop shitting on the valley, everyone.
That was like when I lived in New York. I lived in Astoria, Queens.
Ah, that's where my sister lives.
Yeah, and people were like, you live in Astoria, it's so far. And meanwhile, they'd live in Brooklyn like,
which is
even farther away from the city.
But there's no public transit that connects the two boroughs, which makes no sense, but whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, East Coast talk.
Yeah, little New York specific shit. That's like if I were to hang out with people in Brooklyn, I'd just drive. Like I had a car there, and I was like, fuck
I feel
that.
like we've talked nothing about dating. We've just talked
We've talked about dating. We're talking about the guy that lived in the guest house with the pool, and he always had things. I read an article, though, that said, and it was like, how to have great excuses for if you're being late or to like cancel work. And it said something like, if you ever get a flat tire, take a picture of it. And use that picture later at later dates.
That's amazing.
So could have been a different pipe.
That's true, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But it also is like I've been canceled on so many times, and I've also there have been. Do you ever just? And I think John Mulaney has a bit about how
I love John Mulaney so much.
Yeah, every woman loves John Mulaney so much.
It's because he's so like. He's so wholesome.
He's wholesome,
comedy.
Non-threatening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be best friends with him. But anyway, continue.
I appreciate John Mulaney's comedy. It's funny, but it's very safe.
Yes.
There's not
100%.
Like my favorite kind of comedy is like kind of envelope pushing, which is edgy, but which is like sounds so douchey. But like John Mulaney is just like I just want to have a good, fun comedy time, which is like whatever.
But what were you to say about him?
He has a joke about it's like there's no better feeling than someone canceling plans on you.
Yep.
And it's like, oh,
I didn't want to go anywhere or do anything today. And it's really nice.
Yeah. But then sometimes, you're like, oh, I got,
Yeah.
And
sometimes you're like really
man.
Excited for something or like meeting a person or whatever it might be.
Well, that's what I hate when people... So I get criticized a lot where I'm like, I can't believe these people like bailed on me or whatever. And they're like, you shouldn't expect anything for like, why are you expecting?
You should have no expectations.
Yeah, I
like,
have
I'm
no
gonna
expectations.
Have expectations.
Yeah, because like I made plans and now I don't have anything to do.
Right.
Like now I'm just gonna be bored at my own apartment.
Which is why I always plan activity dates.
Yeah.
One of the best dates I went on was we went laser tagging.
What?
And it was so fun in Sherman
Did you go
Oaks.
on a date with me?
What? But the date itself was great. And then he was like, let's just like drive. He's like, he was new to LA too. And he was like, let's just drive around. And then we were driving up to, it was at night. So we went to like the Mulholland, like overlook, whatever, of all the lights in the city.
Did you go to make out points?
Basically. But then he was like bitching about a little kid that I guess like accidentally ran into him at the laser tag place. He was like, I could have knocked that kid out. And I was like, all right, take me home. I was like, this is done. We're over. I don't know. I'm very much like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like and I don't overlook people's flaws and maybe I should. Like when I was texting you about that guy where I'm like, is this a red flag? Like I have no idea.
Yeah, tell this story because I was on your side at first and then I started to like wane and then now.
Okay, so this is the person I'm potentially going on a date with tonight, so I don't want to like shit all over him even before I even met him. We've been like texting all week and having like a really good conversation, and we were supposed to go out Wednesday night with the guys where he was like, I don't know how late I'm going to work. It's possible I'm going to cancel.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, like that's fine. Like during the week's always tricky anyway. And he did end up canceling. And so I went to see a movie with a friend. So I get out of the movie and I get all of these texts from him where basically he was like, the most insane thing happened to me. I guess he was leaving work and he lives in like, works in Torrance. So there's like probably nothing around. He was like, a woman literally sped past me and just drove into a like gate or a fence or something. And I ran over to like make sure she was okay and called 911. And apparently this woman like kept trying to drive away. And he like took her keys and was like, no. Like you can't, you have 3 flat tires.
I just saw you drive into a
the airbags deployed. He said that the woman.
Airbags deployed.
He said that the woman was like, help me get the airbag out. Like I need to keep driving. And he was like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then he went to like take her keys and I don't know, he said he never touched her, but she was like, stop, you're hurting me. And then all he kept talking about was that piece. And I was like, Or you could just be happy that you saved someone's life. Like, stop talking about that part. I don't know. That part, like, drove me nuts.
Did he get her keys, though?
Yeah, supposedly. And then the cops came and he was like, you guys take this. And he left, basically. Yeah. Which I was like, and he was like, I'm just, because he drives motorcycles. So he's like, I'm very wary of drivers and, like, drunk drivers. And he was like, she could have killed 1 million people. And, like, she, like.
1 million.
1 million people. I mean. It's LA. Traffic, you never know.
That's true, yeah.
But, and he was like, I'm just so angry that she, like, said I was hurting her when I wasn't. And I was like, okay, or you could flip your thinking and be like, wow, I'm a hero. Like, I don't know. It just drove me nuts that he was, like, harping on that tiny little moment. And then I was like, I feel like that's the red flag.
When you texted me that story initially, I was like, yeah, that does sound kind of, like, weird and that's a red flag-ish. And then I asked questions, like, I asked you, like, kind of, like, to repeat the story, because I was like, I don't I was like,
he
I don't
also
really.
refuses to get on the phone, so I'm like, what happened? And he's just typing, and I'm like, no, can I call you? And he's like, I hate phone calls. I'm just like.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
I love phone calls, especially because, like, all my family and friends are East Coast, or, like, my closest people. Obviously, I have friends here.
But so much.
I love it. I love, especially in traffic, it makes the drive go by so fast.
Yeah, I guess.
I, like, call my grandmother expecting, like, a long talk, and, like, at minute 10, she's like, all right, bye. And I'm like, but, okay.
Dude, all of my calls with my grandmother, my parents will be like, you should call your grandmother. Like, it'll be nice she wants to hear from you. And then I'll call her, and the phone call will be very much like this. I'll be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? How are you feeling? She's like, I'm old. I'm ready to die. Anyway, I'll let you go.
That's basically my Nana, too.
It's like, I didn't even talk to you for that long. But anyway, back to this guy's thing. My thing about it was that I feel like if you did... Say that you saved someone's life and then they were like, you hurt me, like, fuck you.
Right. Maybe you'd be upset.
You'd be pissed. I'd be pissed.
I guess. But
I get where this guy's coming from.
Yeah, but I wouldn't focus on that part. You know what I mean?
I'll add a caveat. I get where this guy's coming from if this story is even true.
That's true. I think
that
it's
sounds
true.
like a crazy
That's not why
story.
he canceled. Like, he canceled earlier being like, I don't think I'm getting out of here until like 10. And I was like, valid. Because we had like backup plans for Friday. So I was like, fine. And then it was like hours later I got all these texts. And I was like,
have you gone out with this guy before?
No.
Or is tonight going to be the night?
Tonight might be the first date. If he doesn't bail again, we'll see how that goes. But
who knows? There could be another person crashing right next to him that he saves, and then they accuse him of being a villain. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing with. This is going to get way off topic.
Great.
But
I'll rein you back in.
This is the whole concept with Spider-Man. Because J. Jonah Jameson is always making Spider-Man out to be a villain, and then Peter Parker works with J. Jonah Jameson, and he's like, no, Spider-Man's a hero.
I'm going to pretend like I know what you're talking about.
Okay, well, all right, never mind.
I think
this analogy.
Superhero movies are dumb, and there's so many of them. There doesn't need to be that many of them, and every time I go, I usually go with my dad because he's a comic book freak. Well, he used to be when he was a kid.
But that's like a big crux of like the Spider-Man lore. Is like there's a newspaper editor-in-chief that's like, Spider-Man is a menace, and if you were a hero...
Right, he would.
That was saving people. You'd be like, dude, fuck you. I'm saving people.
Right, but he can't give away his identity.
I get where this guy's coming from. You're going to go on a date with Spider-Man tonight.
Maybe I'm going on a date with Spider-Man, who like hates people and like doesn't want to make plans, but whatever. I've just dated.
I feel like that'd be the most realistic hero, though.
I have such a like. I'm so jaded when it comes to online dating that I've such a like. I think I'm like a red flag like looker. Like I
was gonna say, do you think you just like
for red flags.
Look out for red flags? Like this seems too good to be true, or
no? It's like the opposite. It's like the second that they say something like gross or horrible or whatever, I'm like, bye. Like I'm just like I'm not dealing with this. Like I don't know. I just don't put up with it. I also watch so many of my friends go on dates with people and they're like, yeah, they told me how they're bipolar and unmedicated on our first date. I think I'll see them again. And I'm like, why? Why are you seeing them again? Like, so I think it's because I've been single basically my whole life that I like see so much from afar that I'm like, nope. Like, I'm just going to squash this. I'm done. Like, I just don't play games. I don't deal with any of that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely extreme cases where someone's like, I'm bipolar and I'm like, that's like a date number 7 reveal.
Something. Or even like, or if like, just be really upfront about it in the beginning, maybe, and then people can decide if they're going to date with you as opposed to, like, immediately. I don't know. I've seen so many of my friends go on so many garbage dates, and I've been on so many garbage dates, but I will squash it right away, whereas I feel like a lot of my friends are like, I'll just feel it out, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not desperate enough, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, do you think that holds you back from, like, giving people a chance, even if there's, like, a little bit of a red flag?
I don't know, because I feel like I've given so many people so many chances that I shouldn't have that it's the opposite direction. Like the 35-year-old lawyer who still lived with his parents. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the worst part. There was a lot of other issues there.
We'll talk about the 35-year-old lawyer that lived with his parents.
Okay, well, it took us 3 months to go on a date. 3 months, which should have honestly
it's
been a red
almost
flag.
like this podcast.
Almost. And seems to be a
Through
theme in my
no
life.
fault of my own.
It was both of us. You were sick. I was sick. You went to Hawaii. Whatever. So anyway, and the fires were horrible, and I couldn't speak for a week. Anyway, so
I forgot about that.
Rough.
Yeah.
I woke up and was like, we can record, but I sound like Harvey Firestein. What happened? Okay, so we met on, I think, Bumble. Finally we went axe throwing as our first date, which I was like, sometimes is great because I can tell immediately how okay they are with a girl beating them at something.
Yeah.
And that's like sometimes, and it's an activity and whatever, but because like I've done it for a while, so I'm not great, but I'm decent. Like I'm going to do better than someone who's never done it before generally. And it was like all fine and good. And then it was continuously like, he was a lawyer, but he was a new lawyer. So he'd work till like 11. And then he would be like, let me just like come over and we'll just watch a movie. And like sometimes that was all fine and good. And he built his car from scratch, which I thought was like super cool.
That's really cool.
And my car is a piece of crap. And like the back tail light, since I moved here, like the outside was cracked, but I had to replace the whole thing. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this. So he did it for me, which was like
that's awesome.
Super sweet. But here's where things got weird and where I was like kind of on the fence already about him. And then this is where I was like, I'm not
jumping
okay with
off the fence.
Yeah. While fixing, he was just like basically having me be his assistant and like hold stuff. I know nothing about fixing cars. I know nothing at all. Mm-hmm. And he handed me a key and he was like, keep that for later. And I was like, okay. I assumed it was like a key to like lock a piece in place or something. But then later, we're like making out, whatever. He takes off his pants. He has his dick in a cage. Then he was like, remember that key I gave you? And he was like, I'll let you know when you can use it. And I was like,
oh my God.
I was just like, this is another, like, we could have had a conversation about this first. Like, the pegging guy, like, I'm not going to yuck your yum, but like, where did this come from? Was not expecting any of this. It was all so weird. And it was just
so you had like a legitimate like chastity belt.
Yeah. And then was like, don't take it off until I cry. Like, yes. So on top,
this guy like lived with his parents.
In his detached garage.
In his like guest house at his
in
parents'
Beverly
house.
Hills. And I was just like,
oh my God.
This is really weird. I don't feel comfortable with, I don't know. Like, I just was like, I don't know what any of this is. I'm so new. I'm not part of this like BDSM world. Like, what is going on? And then basically very quickly after that, I ended it. I was just like, well, I don't think we're looking for the same things here.
Oh my God. That's insane.
It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And
guys are gross.
Guys are so gross. The amount of dick pics I've received, the amount of like GTF messages. Can I read that one message that I sent you? I think I sent it to you. It was the night we were like,
I thought you were about to accuse me of like, I think you sent me this. No. I was like, wait, what?
No, it was like the night we were talking about recording and I like got this message and sent it to you, I think, and you were like, I feel dumber.
Yeah.
Where is it? It's gonna take me. One of my best friends, Mike. We are both chronically single, so we just screenshot messages to each other back and forth.
Send them back and forth and be like,
look
at this fool.
Wait, this one's great. It has nothing to do with the one I was gonna pull you up. But he said, would you be interested in a sugar daddy? Ha ha. Honestly, I want to be your support system, someone you can depend on financially, emotionally, physically, and someone you could be comfortable with. All one sentence. I want a relationship, TBH, but not really wanting all of the downsides of one, such as feeling jealous or getting hurt. I am companionship without all the strings attached. So what I did was I sent him my Venmo name. He never sent me any money.
I was sad. Like, I hope that this ends with you getting like $100 and be like, see,
that would be
for
great.
real.
I have a friend who sends people pictures of her feet for money. And I feel like I should start doing that.
I've interviewed like 2 or 3 people that
That's
do
such
that.
a weird. I've also dated 3 people that are into feet, and I'm like, why is this a thing?
I dated
can't find this picture.
A girl that like sold her underwear online. I know a girl that like is a comic.
I feel like I should profit from this.
This girl that I know that's a comic, she has like a premium Snapchat, and I saw her Snapchat.
Snapchats?
Well, it's like
so
you can pay her, and then she like I don't really know how it works.
Okay.
But one of the things that she posted was like, if you pay me $20, you can send me a video of you masturbating, and I'll watch it.
What?
And I was like, that works? Like, you don't even need to do anything. And she was like, yeah, people just send me pictures, and they're like, yeah, well, I'll look at them for $20. It's like, That's insane. Guys are so desperate.
Guys are so desperate.
And
There's that guy I
disgusting.
sent you. I'm looking through our screenshots where I sent you the guy who was like in porn. I think this is because I live in the valley. I keep matching with people that do porn.
Well, I was on that guy's side because you were like, "Fuck this guy, he's in
No,
porn,"
but it's like,
and I was like,
no,
"Well, he's got a job
that's
at least."
Right? Yeah, he does have a job. But don't post pictures of your porn scenes as your Bumble profile.
Yeah,
pictures.
I think that the picture that you sent me of him was like him with a girl with his cum all over her or something, and I was like, "Oh God, you cannot put that."
Little horrible. Okay, so this is the screenshot where you're like, I definitely got dumber. He said, his name's Brett. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to say, comma, maybe in parentheses, in my most humblest advice, best way to start a first message from a white guy. You're coming down a little hard on the guys you haven't tet yet? Question mark. Nothing is English. The tone is reminiscent of the strict parent, I think. So we can say reminiscent, but he can't say haven't met, whatever. Yeah. Just if you don't know, maybe that will help. You got to put off your attractive powers, not the heavy no tone. You did I meme? That's all one word. YADIDIMEEM. You already got a few things going for you, like, well, it's a personal opinion, but I love Jewish girls, which is great too, because I like feminine features, and most Jewish girls and a lot of guys, unfortunately for them, are bursting with that. Nothing like a good glass jaw that says there isn't much testosterone pumping in there, LOL. I dropped the advice because for me right now, anyway, it isn't the time nor place. This is the best part. In a hypocritical way, I wouldn't date a girl who would date me right now, LOL. But at the same time, I probably would. You know what I'm saying? What? That is all one first message. It's like everything about it is wrong. It's like transphobic. It's like weirdly fetishizing Jewish people. It was like so weird. So my response was, in my paraphrasing of his text, hey, I'm incredibly insecure and scared of women who are honest about what they go and what they want and go after in life. So I'm going to mansplain to you in horrible gibberish why you're making me feel insecure about myself. But really, you're pretty. And I'm like definitely not into men, because if I was, that would make me super gay. And I have that thought all the time. But I definitely have a weird religious fetish. So please don't be mean to me. Never responded.
Yeah, I remember you sent me that, and I read it, and I was like, does this guy have like a stroke or something? Does he have like word salad or something?
There's been like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Why men are so stupid. And it's like, let me give you advice in my opening message to you, because clearly you need some advice. Because in my OkCupid profile, I was like, I don't deal with bullshit. Like, I don't want to deal with assholes. Give it to me straight. And apparently this guy did not.
So let me give it to you straight in the most confusing and nonsensical, non-English way.
Did I meme? I said that. I say that to my friends all the time. I was like randomly texting like, did I meme? It's my favorite part.
I was just like, it sucks that those guys exist because they're like ruining it for,
Here's my new favorite
cool
thing.
People.
My new favorite game is to ask men if they're feminists.
Oh, really?
And in LA, they are terrified of that question. And it is so funny. And they're like, it's always like, well, I believe in equality, but. And I'm like, let's hear that but. And it's usually something like ridiculous.
What's the answer you're looking for?
Just like, yeah. Like, just, men and women are equal, period. Like, that's literally what feminism is. And, like, men have turned it into this weird, like, I don't like women that hate men, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not asking you if you're, like, pro-hatred. I'm asking you if you believe men and women are equal. Like, pretty much that simple.
Yeah.
I do have to say the election has made online dating so much easier. So I'm like, who'd you vote for?
Yeah. Well, also, I feel like the feminist question, there's also so many different definitions that, like, even women have of that. So, what, like, there are times where it's like, are you a feminist? And it's like, what kind of feminist are you? Because
that's true.
I'm a feminist, but you might be, like, a different kind of feminist.
That's true.
So, like, there will be times where I'm like, yeah, I'm a feminist. And then they're like, well, you don't, like, hate, like, all these people. I'm like, well, that's not part of feminism.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's not it. Like,
so weird.
Not my definition, anyway.
I just meet people who like they invite you over immediately. Terrifying. I'm trying to write. This has been in the works for like 2 years. I'm trying to make like a go the fuck to sleep kind of book, but a parody of online dating. So here's my theory. So it's going to be like, are you my mother? But it's, are you my mate? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get my friend to illustrate it. So it's like similar illustrations. And it's like screen caps of like a conversation. And like the little bird or whatever is like, oh, you're not my mate. You sent me a dick pic. Or like, you're not my mate. You asked me to come over immediately. Or like just those like simple categories that I feel like falls into place. The guy who had the crazy car crash story, though, we were playing online dating bingo, which was hysterical. He was like, extra points if you have a picture of a guy with those angel wings, like those pictures. Yeah,
everyone has it now.
Yes, and I was like, extra points if you have someone who has been to like the Museum of Ice Cream, like all of those stupid online dating profile pictures.
Museum of Happiness. Yes. I see that picture all the
time.
time.
Selfie booths drive me nuts. I don't get why that's a thing.
Yeah, like the selfie museums.
Like $40 to take pictures of yourself. Like, how vain are you?
Very vain.
Very
I have
vain.
A photography setup, so I'm doing it myself.
Your mirror wall. Just take selfies with all these little blocks.
No, that's a little blue paper background.
There you go. Lots of mirrors.
You know, sometimes I got tired of paying for headshots, so I have my own camera, I have my own like little lighting, and I was like, fuck all that. That costs so much money, dude.
Wait, I never asked you. Are there any dates that you ran out on? Or like had someone emergency text you or...
No, I normally just stick through it.
Oh, I can't do it. Maybe it's just like I'm so anxious and like I'm so like very much like here are my feelings. Like John Mulaney's bit about how Jewish women just tell you what's on their mind. And like like that's 100% who I am as a person. So like I can't sit through bad dates. I can't do it.
I have a thing that's like bad where I really... It doesn't sound bad, but it is where I really care about like not looking like an asshole because so many people think that I'm an asshole.
Oh.
Like I go
white man.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, a lot of people do. Like, number one, I'm a straight white guy. Number two, I have like jokes about this in my act, in my stand-up act. But I have a very, like, villainous, not a good guy face. Like resting
asshole face.
Yeah.
Resting villain face.
Well, I have, like, a very, like, bony, angular face.
Yeah.
And, like, my doppelgangers, like, or, like, the one that I get the most often is Cillian Murphy.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And he's always playing, like, an evil, like, rapist murderer person.
Like, you look like Christoph Waltz.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like always playing an asshole or a Nazi or something.
Yeah, dude. So I have like a lot to like overcome.
So you're trying to be.
So I try to like, I have to like.
Is this okay? Can we do this?
Exactly. So like, even if someone's like an outright asshole to me on a date, I'll just like kind of sit there and take it because I want that person to be like, well, you know, he's a nice guy. And also, like you were talking about with like all these people that are texting you, I want people to have a good time even when they're not having a good time.
Like
it's like. Obviously, we're not a match.
Right.
We're obviously not going to go out on a date again.
Right.
But
we're here. Friday night doing something cool.
Yeah, we're here.
Right.
We might as well have a good time.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. That's my attitude with dating, at least.
Yeah, so I just want that to happen. And so a lot of times I'll just stick it out. Like, even if it's, like, obviously, like, the other day, this was, like, 2 weeks ago.
Not the other day, but yes.
This is the other day. You know, the other day was relative. It was either...
See, I'm an asshole.
I think it was last week. I don't know. Time frame doesn't matter. But I went on a date with a girl, and we were talking. She was asking me about, like, comedy. And her like, first question.
Oh, no.
So, like, you know how you were, like, are you a feminist question was, like, a test, kind of?
Yes.
She was like, so you do comedy, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, must be hard out there when you're a white guy and doing comedy.
Like what John Mulaney says.
And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, because everybody hates you. And I was like, yeah, I guess it's kind of.
See, that's the date you would have sat through, and that's the date where I would have been like texting all of my friends, being like, "Call me with an emergency, get me out of this."
Also, guys don't give a fuck. If I was like, "Hey, call me really quick," they'd be like, "Go fuck yourself."
That's true.
So I've had
male friends like try to save me, which is kind of nice.
That is very nice, but it's different when you're a girl. Like like there's no threat of danger. Like when you say like, "Hey, you need to save me from this date." There could be a whole lot of different things coming on.
That's very true.
If I'm like, you need to save me from this date, they're like, what? What do you?
Right. I've luckily never been in that situation. Knock on wood. Point.
Yeah.
But it's also because I'm searching for all the red flags immediately.
There you go. That's a way to keep yourself
safe. But I've just
safe.
I've done like date coaching, and they're always just like, just go into it with an open mind, and I'm like, but one of the dates I actually like asked the date coach. I'm like not doing it anymore because it's very expensive and it wasn't fruitful. But I was just like, they keep inviting me over, or this one guy like kept dropping hints about his penis. Like before we even met, he was like, yeah, but I'm really big, so like it might be a problem. And I was like,
this is a visual podcast, and I know that you can't see this, but I rolled my eyes so incredibly
I wish there was like a sound effect you could like add to roll your eyes. It's like horror. And then she was like, I'm really glad you didn't go on that date. I was like, yeah, me too, but like how open-minded am I supposed to be, because these are horrible.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the worst date I've been on.
Well, see, that's why another reason why I like stick it out through bad dates is because I want people to have faith in, like, I want people to have a good time with me so that they're not as jaded about, like,
that's true.
You know, like, I went on a date with this fucking asshole. I'm done with online dating. Because there are good people on dating apps.
I don't know if I believe it.
I'm, like, lumping myself in with, like,
There's good people.
A lot of people probably think I'm, like, a huge asshole that
I feel like there just should be an app that somehow asks you, like, a series of questions before they allow you on it. It's, like, only for good people, like, actually looking for, like, legitimate relationships. Like, someone needs to invent this app. My friend and I talk about this all the time, how there just needs to be an app that wades out the garbage for you in order to be on it.
I feel like that's the pay apps. Like, when you pay, like, Match.com or whatever.
Maybe, but they don't ask you, like, they don't vet you, so you could just pay money to be on them, so that's not much different.
And that's the other thing is, like, the vetting process would be different for everybody, though.
That's true. What's the worst first message you've ever received from someone? Since I read mine, clearly, that paragraph of nonsense.
This is gonna sound bad, but women are so not creative, and
really,
they don't even. I've tweeted a joke about this, and like it got me a lot of flack, and this is a lot of reason why people don't like my stand-up. Because I joke about this kind of shit. Is you know how women have like they used to have tumblers of like screenshots of all the shitty things the guys send.
Yes.
I tweeted. Yeah, exactly. I tweeted one time. I was like, guys would have that too if women said anything remotely interesting. Because all of the messages I got are just hi or hey, what's up?
Right.
So it's like guys don't really get that.
My go-to message on Bumble has been very successful for me.
What's the go-to message?
At least in responses. Sometimes they're horrible responses, but at least I get a response.
Reveal your secret.
Well, at least this time of year. I'm like, hey, it's natural disaster season in LA and I need a protector. Are you him? And sometimes they're like, yeah, I've got a horse. Like, let's go. Or like something like really funny. Or they're like, wait, you have pictures of you axe throwing. Shouldn't you be my protector? Or like something like silly. Or then other times I get the ones where it's like, I'm the natural disaster baby. LOL. And I'm like, blah, vomit. I like literally send a vomit emoji and then just delete them.
See, I'm glad that you do that because I appreciate the creativity in that. Thank you. That is like, I put so much effort into my profile to like allow for questions to be asked.
Like an open.
Yeah. Like when I'm on dating apps like to date, I have pictures of like, hey, I'm at Disney. Right. Hey, I do like aerialist circus stuff. Yeah. I have a picture of me doing that. I have a picture of me doing stand-up. Right. There's like all kinds of...
I'm a creative person with hobbies. Yeah. That's another LA thing I've run into. People just don't have hobbies here.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, or it's like, I'm looking to date so you can be my hobby. And I'm like, this is a lot of energy that I don't want to have. Or people that have just moved here. And I'm like, you need a year before you get on these apps. And like people told me that in the beginning. And I was like, nah. And I dated someone and that's literally like all I did was date this person. And I was like, oh, I should have like made friends and had hobbies and like learned how the city worked before I was on these dating apps.
That was like a girl that I dated in New York who like her only hobby was like dating. Yeah. And I was like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And she was like, oh, I think that my purpose in life might just be to like a support partner. And I was like,
that makes me want to cry.
Like, she's so sweet, and, like, she's, in my mind, like, kind of the one that got away, I guess. But, I mean, I broke up with her.
9 million children right now.
Yeah, I know, but... But it's also, like, you gotta have something else, you know?
Right.
You gotta, like, sign up for a dodgeball league or something. Axe throwing league.
Axe throwing's so cool.
That's fucking
I've
cool
made so many cool friends through axe throwing. And now we're doing Secret Lumberjack instead of Secret Santa, and it's super cute. So, just plugging that out there. Join an axe throwing league. It's really fun.
But back to the point is... Women have no creativity, and I offer them so many...
That's what the guy, when we were playing, like, online dating bingo, I said something, like, I don't know what we said, and I was like, but I'm not like other girls. And he was like, ding, ding, ding. He was like, you win. He was like, I purposely, like, said it like that, and I was like, yes, I win this game.
You know, the most creative ones that I've gotten are, since I got back on them, like, to date, is I put that I'm allergic to cats, and this is what it says. This is a quote.
Should I find your profile?
I know, I deleted them all already. I already gave up on that shit.
Great.
I put allergic to cats, period. Sorry, ladies with cats. That's
I like that. I would have loved that.
That's all it says.
That's amazing.
And I've gotten so many like, well, I have cats, and it's like fucked up that you don't date women with cats.
It's like, so why'd you match with me?
Exactly.
Why wasting your time? That's my favorite, because on mine it says, It's like one of those stupid questions now where it's like, we'd get along if or whatever. And I was like, you didn't vote for Trump and you don't live with your parents. And I was like, this needs to be on my profile somewhere because it just needs to weed out all of these people. And then I get so many people that are like, why don't you like Trump? Like MAGA, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why are you trolling me instead of doing something better with your time?
There
or
are Trump
opening
people,
your heart.
like I haven't.
So many in LA.
I need to find Trump
just
people.
so weird. And Israelis, they love Trump because they think Trump's good for Israel. And I was like, he's just as racist as the Prime Minister of Israel. But we don't have to talk about my politics.
See, I think there's a Trump dating website called Trump Singles, and I wanted to have those people on here.
That makes me literally nauseous.
I think it'd be interesting to hear their take on dating in LA because it's such a liberal, like, crusty city. And so it's got to be, like, really hard for them out here. So dating is hard for fucking the Trump people, probably. Just be like, yeah, it's so hard to, like, find a good Trump supporter out here. It's like...
Oh, I want to tell you about the ceramics guy that I just started talking to last night. So this guy who had in his profile how he did ceramics, and we were talking. I gave him my number because I didn't want to deal with Bumble anymore because it's a data suck, battery suck, whatever.
Well, ceramics is like, that's when you're creating pottery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like from scratch, which I think is so cool. I'm not a visually creative person. I'm like just a performer person, so visual arts in my brain is like so cool. If people can draw or like make stuff with their hands, because I cannot do it. Same like Pictionary, you don't want me to be your partner. So we're talking about it. We were talking about other things. Then I was like, oh, can you teach me ceramics? And his response, like I really wanted to learn. And his response was, I won't teach you, period. And I was like, something must have been horribly wrong. And I immediately texted one of my best friends. I was like, you definitely murdered someone in a kiln. Because it just got like a very serious tone. And then I was like, no, but I just want to I just want to make that scene from Ghost. Like, that's it. Like, I thought it was funny.
The classic Patrick Swayze. The classic.
And then he was just like, I'm not teaching you. Sorry to, what did he say? He was like, sorry to ruin your expectations that were unrealistic. I was like, all right, bye.
That's so
my
weird.
phone has a magical power, as I was telling you.
That guy had like a Jedi Knight underneath of him to betray him and join the Sith.
He's also like 37, which is normally I don't date people 10 years older than me, but I'm like, well, we'll see. And then part of me is also like, I don't know, maybe I'm just old school that I'm like, why are you on an app like this and not like a paid app? You know what I mean? I feel like there's a point in your life where you're like looking for something more than the apps are going to give you, but I don't know.
Do you think it's possible, and I have a joke about this, to meet people in real life anymore to date?
Okay, the only person I dated who I met in real life ended up being a major narcissist / gaslighter. So I don't know. He was the most manipulative person I ever met, and I didn't realize it till much later when at a party, my friend got too drunk and introduced me to his ex-girlfriend. Mm-hmm. It was like, you both dated Ari, ha ha ha, and then just like walked away, and we both, weirdly, both gingers, both gluten intolerant, like all these weird things where I'm like, what is his, like now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, he clearly like preys on a specific type of person. And she told me this insane story that like he proposed to her and then cheated on her and then made her think it was her fault, like major like gaslighting stuff. And we only dated for a couple of months, so it didn't obviously get that far, but I was wondering why it took me so long to get over this person, because normally I'm pretty good at like whatever, on to the next. So this person, I was like, why am I like not over them? They clearly did some like weird Jedi mind tricks to me, but that was the only person I met in person that I dated, so I don't know. Also, people in LA don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
In Philly and New York, like you're on subways, you're always like next to people that I feel like I was always just like, what's your deal? Like, I like meeting people. I don't know. And here you're just always in your car by yourself. There's no like public forum. Or even if you go to a bar, it's like people are like, why are they at the bar by themselves? And it's like, maybe they just want to talk to people. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like I feel like I've read so many articles on like fucking Elite Daily and shit like that, which I used to write for, as I was like the male perspective on dating like 7 years ago. But I've read so many articles where it's like, I'm not at the bar to meet guys, or like I'm not at the gym to meet guys, I'm not at X to meet guys.
I feel like there's like a shirt that's like
but then there's people that are like, why are you on dating apps? I hate dating apps. And you know, like, and I'm like, I'm on dating apps because meeting people in real life is illegal.
It's so illegal. It is legal. It's so hard. I'm now like just recently just talked to all of my friends. I'm like, who can you set me up with? Like, I just like don't know what to, except the one time I was set up, he was horrible. But so now I don't know. But,
I got my roommate's girlfriend the other, like a month ago, to post a picture of me on her Facebook and be like, this guy is single. Is anyone interested? And her grandmother was like, he was pretty cute.
That's amazing. thing.
I wish more people could do stuff like that,
Seriously, and just be like, now
It'd be
Facebook
helpful.
has a dating thing, and I'm like, this seems like the worst.
I got on that for like 2 days, and it was trash.
I feel like that's what Hinge was supposed to be originally. When it first
wasn't
came
it?
out, it was like friends
It was
of friends.
mutual friends,
So
yeah.
you could be like vetted, or other people could vet for it, whatever. And then they like changed their whole thing, and now it's basically Tinder, but you have less swipes or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that like we could do more like, hey, this is my friend Joe.
Who's single?
He's single. Have a look at
Looking to
him.
mingle.
If you're interested, let me know. I'll pass your info along or whatever.
Yes.
But that's just like a weird thing.
I don't know. I just keep meeting people that are like, that's another, I guess, red flag for me. It's like if they like are so avoidant to call it a date, I'm like, I don't think this is gonna work. Like if you're that scared of that word, like then you're terrified of like any sort of commitment.
You
or
want to know
anything.
what I do that's like I think is funny, but
Let me
it could
hear
like be off-putting probably.
I love your prefaces. Let me hear.
So I'll make plans with somebody and it'll be like, hey, we're going to meet here at this time on this day. Is that
God,
cool?
That's so refreshing.
And then they're like, yup. And then I'll go, cool, it's a date. And then I'll go, and then I'll send that text. And then the immediate next text is like all caps, like, I called it a date. You can't take it back now.
I love that. I wish people did more of that. But we were talking
it
about like
freaks some people out.
Right, so we're both East Coasters, and I
Yeah.
feel like being out here is so hard. Like, I don't do the dance that people want to do of, like, here's the point, I'm going to make a giant circle around it, and then eventually get to the point. So, this is not a dating thing, but when I came out here, I was teaching full-time, and I asked the teacher that I was working underneath if they could, like, critique me, because I was like, I don't know, I've never taught full-time, I've only done, like, one-on-one, like, tutoring sessions and stuff, and she was like, that's really aggressive.
Like the way that you were teaching?
No, that I asked that question. That I asked for help instead of doing the weird dance around it and then of being like, oh, so I was wondering if you could maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I just get to the point and people are terrified of that here. I mean, right before I left Philly, it happened there too. So I guess it's more so in LA though. Right before I left Philly, I was on the apps, even though I was like, I'm moving, this is stupid. But this guy was talking to me. He was like, well, what are you looking for? I was like, well, I'm moving in like 2 months. So maybe just like someone to hang out with and like kind of tick things off my like Philly bucket list before I move, like would be cool. And he responded in all caps, I don't know what you want. And I was like, I just told you.
I just literally just
I don't
told you.
know. And then that's like the same thing here. Like people are like, what are you looking for? I was like, well, I want to like date and then see where it goes and like hope that it turns into something, but I'm not looking to like be in a relationship after 2 dates.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, I don't like that. Bye. And I'm like, what did you expect me to say? I just answered your question. Like what?
Yeah. When women ask me, like, what are you looking for? I go, ideally, I'm looking for the last person that I will ever date in my entire
Right.
life. But I am, like, open to other things.
Valid on the dating app.
And then so it's just like,
Or my thing, at least, because you say how like girls say nothing interesting. This
Mm-hmm.
is the response I get a lot from guys. They're like, I don't know, like whatever happens. And I'm like, you made an account for a reason. You put in the time to pick out your pictures and to answer the questions and do all the crap that we all hate doing for a reason. Just tell me what that reason is.
you put in the effort.
Right.
Now, would you be open if a guy was just like, I'm just looking to fuck?
Would I be open? What do you mean in terms of
Like would you respect that?
I would respect that answer, but I would be
the
like,
honesty?
well, I'm not looking for that. So
And
good
then
luck
I'd
to
be
you.
like, all right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, good luck to you. I'm not that person. Especially because I've recently found out that an LA city has the highest STD rate in the country.
LA as a city does?
90% STD rate. So that
So
terrifies me.
90% of people are walking around have STDs.
And just like spreading them around.
I don't believe that.
I don't know.
I do not believe
But
that
I'm
at
like,
all.
that's not my scene. I don't want to get something. Also, I was back to catfishing. I was recently talking to this guy who said he was like a bodyguard to the stars. And then I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then we had a phone conversation because he's from Iraq, I think. So like he couldn't type very well in English, but he could speak very well in English. I'm very similar with Hebrew. But he was saying how like he was just like shitting on women the whole time. And he was like, I could have whoever I want in this city because I'm like going to all these parties with all these beautiful women and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I don't want to get sick, so I don't touch them. And I was like, whoa, like there's a lot to unpack in that statement. I'm going to back away from
That's
that.
a whole lot. That's crazy.
It was a lot. It was insane.
Dude, people will people reveal the craziest shit about themselves. Just like...
Well, I told you how my phone has a magical power. The second I save someone's name, who's someone I want to date, something goes awry.
Yeah.
And they're just immediately like, here's pictures of my dick. Here's all my weird fetishes that I never told you about. Or here's some, like, giant red flag via text message that I, like, didn't know how to tell you. And I'm just like, I'm done and bye. I, like, don't know how to be... One guy... You did talk about trolling before. I do have to circle back to this because I was recently looking at all these horrible screenshots. This guy called me Nalissa.
Nalissa?
Like instead of an M, it was an N. And he was like, hey, Nalissa, how's it going? And I was like, oh, you want my twin sister. And he was like, wait, what? And I was like, you asked for Nalissa, right? And he was like, yeah. Like, he didn't even say, like, oh, I meant Melissa. Like, he just totally
I was going to say, was this like a repetitive, like, he kept calling you Nalissa?
Yeah, and I was like, and he was like...
That's like a cute joke thing, though.
Right, but he, like, totally, like, thought I was serious.
Oh, what a loser.
And he was like, wait, what? Who's the one with the pictures? I was just like, let me go get my twin.
God.
I do like to play that game of, like, how dumb are you?
Yeah.
It's just, it's rough. It's hard.
Dating's hard.
What's the best date you've been on?
I don't know.
So now they're like smoking a cigarette, like, oh, it's all bad.
The best date I've been on out here or...
In general.
In general?
Like, since you've been dating. Like, I was late to the dating game because I was in such a weird dating pool in college. Like, I didn't really start dating till, like, senior year of college or after. So, like, I feel like I missed out a lot of those, like, whatever dates when you're, like, 19, 20, and you're just like, we can't go to a bar. What do we do?
I mean, I think the best date that I've ever been on was, like, with the one that got away.
In New York, yeah.
In New York, where we went to a UCB show.
Nice.
Which was nice, which is classic.
Yeah.
And then afterwards... we went to Taco Bell because she had never had Taco Bell before.
What?
Yeah, she was like 25, and I was like, "Are you serious?
Did you have a child?
You've never had Taco Bell before?" And she was like, "No." And there was one right across the street, and
like
I was
the
like,
worst version of Mexican food. You've never had it.
and I was like, "I've got to introduce you to Taco Bell." And then so we went to Taco Bell, and I got like a Mountain Dew, and she was like, "I've never had Mountain Dew before either." I was like, "You got to have Mountain Dew now."
You just opened up a whole new world.
Well, that was a good, and then like we dated for like 2 years or whatever. But I mean, that was like a simple, but it was good. We had chemistry.
Right.
Like a lot of the times, it's not like
what you do.
We did like a crazy, like amazing first date, but it's like the chemistry was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about you?
In Philly, it was actually Easter Sunday, so there was like nothing was open, and he was Jewish and I was Jewish. So we went to the art museum, which is like the Rocky Steps, and we just like brought a bottle of wine and like talked, and it was like actually great, and it was like at night, so it like overlooked the city, and it was like really pretty and like semi-romantic. But he was in town from Israel visiting his family. He's like American, but moved to Israel, and I was like, well, I'm about to move there for school, and I like had this vision in my head that we would like date and it'd be great and blah blah. And it never happened, but it was a really good first date. This was a really, I'm just like going through all these screenshots that I've chronically sent my friend. The best one I've recently received was, I sent that message where I said, it's natural disaster season, are you, and I need a protector, are you him? And he said, hi, it's Matt from Scranton. I grew up with your sister. I know you. And I was like, what?
I know you.
And then I immediately texted my sister and I was like, what do you remember about him? And she was like, that he's incredibly like not memorable.
Oh, ouch.
But he's a voiceover agent, so I'm like trying to work that angle, but I like still, it's not going anywhere. But all of his like social media things are Scranton. Like he's so like still obsessed with Scranton. Like his email is like Hill Section something something something, which is like a part of Scranton is the Hill Section.
I feel like it's part of like, oh, you're from Scranton, you watch The Office,
right.
Like so many basic ass watchers.
There's a YouTube video where it's like some guy where it's like, I like The Office, and it's just
I know the guy that made that video.
Really? Yeah. Can I meet him?
I used to bang his roommate.
So that's how you know him?
Yeah, I barely know him, mainly just because me and his roommate used to like bang. Like I'm not.
Thanks for being obvious.
I'm not being like it wasn't. I'm not trying to dance around. It was like we were friends with benefits or whatever. And we were like fuck buddies. Like we would just
show up.
We would
like
just
transactional
bang. Like, it was not.
One of my really good friends sent me that video, and he was like, "Is this what your online dating life is like?" And I was like, 1,000%.
Is it the one that like he ends with him in the desert or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please
that's the
introduce
guy.
me to this person.
Well, me and that lady are not on good terms anymore.
That's fine, but just talk to him about me. It's cool. I don't even have any interest to date this person. I just want to be like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Like you have no clue what it's like to be from Scranton.
Well, you're unique because you have celiac disease.
Yes.
What So your idea of like what a good first date is
dinner.
Different than, yeah, it's not
never dinner. One of my best friends like only does dinner dates because she's like, if I'm gonna sit with someone I don't really want to hang out with, at least I'm getting free food. And I really wish I had that mentality.
I hate when I hear that.
Yep, I know you do.
I hate hearing that.
I heard a comedian once.
I know that it's the truth,
yep.
and I'm willing to go along with that. But if you say it out loud,
it's horrible.
I fucking hate you.
It's true. My brother-in-law, when all the dating apps came out, told my sister to just go on a bunch of dates and like order a bunch of entrees to go. He was like, we'll eat like kings.
There was a story of a girl that went on a date every night for a year. And
so genius.
Never. Oh, I hate
That's my kind of feminism. No, I'm just totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Am I a feminist? Then no. If that's your...
No, I heard a comedian once who was like talking about dating, and he's like, I'm not dating, I'm just feeding people in LA. I was like, I love this.
That's
it's
a great
so true.
bit. That's fucking
But no,
hilarious.
I hate dinner dates because I sound really high maintenance when I don't mean to be. I'm like, this is like a legitimate thing. I'm not one of those white girls who are like, is that water gluten free? And then like drink a beer, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're giving people like me a bad name. And honestly, I just don't want to get stuck with someone I don't know if I'm going to get like stuck with for 2 or 3 hours. If it's like a decent restaurant where it like takes a while to get your food and all that kind of stuff, where I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah,
like one of the many dates I've ran out of.
Actually, speaking of that, like
yes.
there was one really just bad date that I went on. It was via Hinge. It was me and this girl, like we had good text banter. It was all good. And then we met and we were at dinner. And it was just like nothing. She was stonewalling me. And like, I don't want to brag, but I feel like I'm a pretty charismatic, easy to talk to person. I talk, I ask questions. I ask follow-up questions. This girl wouldn't ask me one question. So it was like I was doing work.
It's like the Progressive commercial. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that one.
It's like the girl playing Flo, but she's in like a leather jacket. And he's like, so, like, tell me. And she's just like on her phone being like, whatever.
Pretty much. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I wish this was reversed because I've been on so many dates where that's the same thing too. And I'm like, I know you
it's
don't
a
like
job.
Eliza Schlesinger, but she has a whole bit about how she went on a date with an accountant. And she was like, I guess I'll carry this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, she's like a charismatic comedian. And he's just like, why work with numbers?
It's rough. It
is
rough. And I know that, like, it's not a situation unique to me. Like, I'm sure that happens to you. But I was having to work. And this was the July 5th. So... The earthquake that happened here happened while we were on a date.
What?
And the earthquake
I was helping my friend
happening,
move, and I was like carrying a box.
Dude, the earthquake happened,
Terrifying.
And then we still had nothing to talk about. It wasn't like
That's how you know it's dead.
It was like, this is fucking crazy. Like the earthquake.
That's when
happened.
I started that message.
And she was like,
There's earthquakes all the time.
This is kind of nuts. I was like, all right, fucking, I get it. Like, this is bad.
Now I want to, like, challenge you, since you say how you'll just, like, stick it out. Now I'm curious.
See how bad it can get before
now
I'm like,
I want to make this a podcast. Because I'm immediately like, get me out of here. So the worst date I went on was this guy that didn't talk to me. He just stared at me the whole time and didn't say a single word. We, like, ordered drinks. And he just literally stared at me with like this like dead behind the eyes look that I really thought he was a robot. And then I called my roommate and said like, is the dog okay? And ran out.
So yeah, we have to wrap up pretty soon.
I know, I was going to say, we've been talking forever.
Yeah. But talk about this. Like, were you talking before and then you sat down and he just stopped talking?
Okay. So we met on, I don't even remember what app. And he was Israeli, and I was just about to move to school for Israel. So I was like, even if this date goes poorly, at least I can ask him some questions or, like, his experience in Israel, whatever. I've also noticed, especially in LA, people that have left Israel and moved to the States, very different than actual Israelis. Okay. Whatever. That's a whole other side note. In terms of dating, it's horrible. But anyway,
I wouldn't understand whatsoever.
Yeah, it's horrible. They're all, like they're running away from home kind of people. Oh. Like, something's weird. Anyway, so... he picks this restaurant that I've actually been really wanting to go to in Philly because it's like mostly gluten-free. And I was like, oh, great. But I also like don't want to do dinner, as I said. So I was like, we'll get drinks, we'll feel it out. And if like it's comfy, then maybe we'll order food. So we get there and they put us in the front, which is like a storefront. So it's glass on all sides to the street. So I feel like I'm in a fish tank, like being watched
like a zoo
on
animal.
this date. Exactly.
Like, and now we observe the humans on a date.
And I like go through hot and cold phases where I'll like be on a date. I'll go on like 3-4 dates like for a couple weeks for like a month or two. And then I just like get off the apps for like 4 or 5 months because I'm just like done. So it's like, it was the beginning of one of those periods where I was like just over being done. So it was my first date in a while. And so I was nervous, whatever. And then we sit down and we're like kind of talking. I'm like asking him about Israel, whatever. And we order drinks. And then he literally just stares at me with no words whatsoever. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's a weird language barrier. And I like tried to ask him in my like broken Hebrew. And he was like, I heard you. And then just like keep staring at me.
How long was this going on for?
Like a solid half hour. Oh, right. So I was trying to like overcome my like, I don't give people a chance. I always like find a reason to leave early, whatever it might be. And then I just had to leave. I just left.
Yeah, I feel like if something like that happened to me, I would be so panicked.
I just watched the episode. It would come out years ago because I was living in Philly at the time, where Chelsea Handler like invented an app that texts you so you can get out of dates. Have you seen it?
No.
It's called Gotta Go, and you you like program it ahead of time, and also so you can be like, see, instead of being like, oh, someone called me when I was in the bathroom, which is like total bullshit, whatever.
Yeah.
So I like had pre-programmed it before the date had started. So I'm like, I've never used this before. I'm so curious for like 45 minutes in, because I was like, I feel like that's like enough time to like know if it's going well or not. And then I was like, worst case I'll be like, oh, sorry, I have to leave. Best case, I can be like, just ignore it because it's a text message, whatever. And then I kept showing him the text and he just kept staring at me. So then I called my roommate and was like, oh no, the dog must have gotten out. I need to go home immediately. Like, as an actor, you'd think I'd be really good at lying, but I'm not. I'm like so bad. My old roommate used to have a tactic where she would say like, we can get a drink or whatever, but I have to be at a birthday party by a certain time. So that way, if it wasn't going well, she had an out, or if she'd be like, oh, I'll just go late if it was going well or whatever. And I never did that.
I have that built in as a comedian where I'm like, I have an open mic to go to, or I have a show to go to. So
that's really smart.
And then if it's going well, I'll be like, well, it's not that great of a show anyway. So
right, exactly.
Then it's like,
and then
he's sacrificing
exactly.
he's sacrificing his dream to hang out with me. Just did the jerk off.
I've only run out of 3 dates. It was that one and then 2 others in LA.
All right.
They're all horrible.
We should wrap up pretty soon.
All right,
We've been talking for quite a while. I'm sorry.
It's because you're so charismatic, like you said.
Like I said. Don't want to brag. But, all right, I'm going to ask you the questions that I ask everybody at the end of this podcast.
I guess I'm not special.
Yeah, sorry. What is one thing that you would change about dating if you could? If you were given a magic wand, change one thing, what would it be?
I think just like blunt honesty up front.
That would be so frightening. I would not want that.
It's frightening, but I think it saves so much time and it saves so much crap. Like, I feel like everyone has this thing in their head about like, I don't know if it's like a thing that they have to reveal about themselves or whatever it might be, where it's like, I'll tell them if we get to like date 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And it's like, why waste all that time? Just say it now. Like, if it's going to scare someone away, it's going to scare someone away, whether they've like gone to an arcade with you and then a museum and then the movies. Like, why does it, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to scare someone away or they'll be okay with it.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where like once I get the phone number, I'm like, all right, here's my red flags. This is what people get pissed off at me about.
And that's what it says in my dating profile.
Like, is that going to be a problem?
Exactly. It says in all my dating profiles, I'm like, I'm a blunt, extroverted East Coaster.
Yeah.
Because it's like scared people away before.
Yeah, people out here are so weird about that shit. Like, that's one thing that I really miss about. Yeah, that's one thing I really miss about the East Coast, like the sense of humor and like the.
There were so many dates I've gone on the East Coast where it's like we started talking on the app like that day, and they're like, "Hey, I'm free tonight. Want to grab a drink?" I'm like, "Yeah, great." And then here it's like this setting up this podcast. It takes so long, and it's such a shuffle, and it's so annoying.
All right, last question I have for you before we wrap things up.
There's only 2.
Yeah, there used to be 3, but then like this. Here, I'll give you the second. It's very similar to the first one that I found. It is, what's the worst part about dating? What do you think is the worst part?
Oh, that's interesting. Because I don't know if it's the same. I think it's just like the work. Like, let me like check my schedule and then people, and it's like, it's just a meeting. Like, I feel like there's all this build up to some almost nothing most of the time.
Yeah.
If you have to plan it like forever in advance because of your schedules, then it's like, at least for me, like I get really anxious before dates and I'm like, oh God. And then it's at the point now where I'm like, I'm just meeting a human.
Yep.
Whatever. So like if it was that day, I feel like it would take away a lot of that. Like,
I feel like there has to be a healthy balance of that though, because you can't go in with like, I'm going to meet my wife tonight or whatever.
1,000%.
But you also have to be, in my opinion, I think you have to be open to like, this could go somewhere.
Right.
Because if you go into it like, this is nothing, I'm just meeting somebody, then it's like, that's all.
Well, yeah. But I've also like made friends from people that I've dated. So it's just like, maybe I'm just meeting a human that'll be like a cool friend. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Instead of being like, oh God, maybe I'm meeting the love of my life and I'm going to spill a drink and ruin it.
That'll like kill the nerves that you have.
Yeah, just like I'm just meeting a person.
Yeah, I've just been on so many dates at this point where it's just
agreed.
like.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the lady in the corner with the cigarette.
Yeah. All right, last question before we wrap it up. what is one piece of advice that you'd love to give everyone listening
Ooh.
about dating?
About dating?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just like similar to what I said before. It's just like unashamedly.
See, now you understand why there were only 2
I
questions.
get it. But no, I think it's like unashamedly be yourself. And I know like everyone says like just be yourself and it'll be fine. It's like no, like say who you are. Don't play the games. And like I feel like especially in LA, that's like there's like game that people expect you to play, and I'm like I don't do that. Like if I want to see you, I'll text you first, and maybe I'll text you 3 or 4 times in a row because that's how I talk. Like if that freaks you out, like. This isn't going to work. You know what I mean? So I'd rather know all that up front. Like, I had a friend in college who refused to be friends with me because I sent 3 texts in a row once. And he was like, this is really overwhelming. I was
really?
like, okay. Especially for me, I'm usually on my Mac if I'm texting. So I just go into, like, AIM mode and I'm just, like, sending stuff. And
see, I do that, too. I, like, double, triple text.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't care. Like, the guy I'm
squeeze...
potentially going on a date with tonight, he sends, like, several texts in a row. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
like, I prefer that sometimes. And, like, tell me all of your thoughts in one chunk, even if it's different texts, it's fine, and then I'll respond in kind.
Well, I think that like sometimes a joke works better when you're like double, triple texting. You know,
that's true.
It's like you'll say something, and then like
you have to lay the
tag
punchline, 100%. But also, that's just how conversations work. You say more than one little sentence at a time, so I'm gonna type the way that I talk.
That makes sense.
And I'm just bluntly like, this is what I'm into. Are you gonna waste my time? Because I don't want to deal with it.
Well, I told you about my fucking allergy, no cats, and then like my ex-girlfriend was like, "You have impossible standards." It's like, these cats, I'm allergic to them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry that my standard is like biological.
Right, like if I had known about Dick Cage Man, like Nick Cage, but Dick Cage, I would have ended that much earlier and would not have played the like 3 months of texting back and forth before we scheduled the date. Like, I mean, I guess there's some things that like maybe come up as you're dating where it's like, let's explore this together, like whether it's sexual or just like a cool place you both want to go to but you've never been before, whatever. But like, I don't know, I think just like be who you are and it's gonna work or it's not gonna work.
All right, that makes sense. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for doing the podcast. If you have like a website or Instagram that you want to talk about, go for it. If you don't want to do that, just a book or something that you would recommend. A book, documentary,
well, I'm
whatever.
a voice actor, so if anyone needs, if you hear this sultry, teenage-sounding voice, done a lot of Spotify commercials for H&M where I sound like a teenager.
Really?
Check out my website. Cool. It's melissarob.com.
There you go, everybody.
Very exciting.
Melissa Robb, thank you so much for doing this show. I really appreciate it. And there you have it, everybody. That was my little sit-down chat with Melissa. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to keep updated with the podcast, you follow it at Dating is Hard Comedy. You can go to the website, www.datingishardcomedy.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at Joe Welke. The Dating is Hard live shows every 4th Wednesday at Pack Theater, and you should come check it out because it's by donation only. So if you got extra bucks to spare, chuck it the theater's way. And if you don't, you can still come and enjoy the shit out of the show. Like, subscribe, review, 5-star, all that stuff on all of the streaming platforms. Tell a friend about the podcast if you're enjoying it. And I just want you guys to know that I really appreciate you stopping by and listening to the podcast because I'm really enjoying doing it. And I'm happy that I've got so many people. I got a lot of positive feedback and, you know, so many people are actually listening to it. So I'm happy that we're doing this. I'm happy that you guys are enjoying it so far. So thank you so much. And I'll talk to you guys